Okay, the time is now 7:01. I'd like to call this Board of Select meeting to order, special Board of Select meeting to order on March 30th. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and roll call.
Mike Shubna, Tom Zinkowitz.
Item C, to approve the meeting minutes from the special Board of Select meeting on February 4th and also March 9th.
I believe that's supposed to be March 4th.
Yeah, I believe it is. So the amendment there on the paper would be 3/4/26.
I'll make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for a special Board of Selectmen meeting on 3/4/26 and the Board of Selectmen meeting for 3/9/26.
I'm going to abstain from the 3/4 special meeting because I was not present.
Okay. Can I do them one at a time, or?
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the special Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from 3/4/26.
I'll second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And abstain. Thank you.
Now I'll make a motion to approve the regular Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from 3/9/26.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item D is public comment. Is anybody here wish to speak to the public?
To the Board of Selectmen and my fellow citizens, my name is Trav Harmon. I am a Moosup resident, and I am in support of this board taking up the question of the blight ordinance. My comments tonight are not in opposition, but are to get it right on the first try so we're not back here to revise it constantly. This board has been down this road before. Last year, the open fire ordinance came forward with language broad enough to require permits for every fire on every property. I raised concerns, had a direct conversation with the fire chief, and the ordinance was revised to reflect the actual intent without overstepping onto residents' rights. The system worked, but it required extra effort that could have been avoided if the scope had been defined correctly at the start. That's my ask tonight. Before language is drafted, I want the board to be thinking about a few things. First, define blight by objective, verifiable harm, not aesthetics, not appearance. Structural collapse, hazardous material, vermin infestation, conditions that pose a documented risk to the public safety or public health. It cannot be measured or verified. It should not be in the definition. Second, recognize that appearance is subjective. An unmowed lawn is not a hazard. The manicured lawn standard came from the French aristocracy, not public safety. A rat rod parked in a driveway is not a hazard. If the ordinance was written loosely enough to reach those things, you will spend more time defending than enforcing it. Let me picture it for you. I want to be able to pull into my driveway in a 1956 Chevy truck with a beautiful patina finish, walk into my natural backyard, light a fire, crack a beer, maybe smoke a joint, and hum the Star-Spangled Banner on my property that I pay taxes on. All without needing a permit, without a code enforcement officers, and especially without my neighbor's opinion carrying the force of law. That should not be a controversial position in a rural New England town. But a broadly written blight ordinance makes that all negotiable. Third, remember what Plainfield is. This is a town. People choose to live here because it is not a part of an HOA. An ordinance that gives code enforcement officers broad discretion over how a resident's property looks crosses that line. Get the definition narrow and objective from the start. Build in clear appeals process, and this ordinance will be defensible and enforceable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
John Wilson.
Probably going to turn that on the top.
John Von Olson, Central Village. I have a couple comments also on the blight ordinance, but basically some things that I hope are considered. One is the differentiation between deferred maintenance on properties versus actual problems that are for example, trash, grills, things like that that are obvious eyesores, part of the definition of it. And I would like to see a differentiation between the owner homes, single-family homes that are owned by individuals versus rental properties or income properties or multifamily homes. I think that the circumstances of determining a perception of blight between those two would be pretty significant. And another thing that I'm curious about is if you look at Wyndham, Coventry, Fairfield, Holland, Brooklyn, Putnam, Darien, and Waterbury. These are all towns that are close by, relatively close by, and they have instituted blight ordinances fairly recently, which in and of itself is kind of curious. But I would wonder if anybody from the town has talked to them about their blight ordinances and whether or not they've actually done some good. Some of them have been around for a few years. There may be good data there on what worked, what doesn't. For example, Fairfield, apparently there's some contention there about the definition of blight. But it might be really helpful for that kind of exchange to take place so that we have an idea, like some of the other comments made, that we do it right the first time. The other comment I have is on snow removal, which is another contentious topic, but from what I can see, I would like to see a possibility of a contingency plan for the town of Plainfield to remove snow from the sidewalks when we get snows of this type. Because, for example, where I am, the sidewalks were covered completely, and having an ordinance to clear your sidewalk wasn't going to do any good because the normal homeowners lacked the manpower and equipment to clear that stuff. And in addition, the snowplows would come through multiple times a day. So even if you clear it once, you got to do it all over again the next day. So it's something that, you know, if it's every 10 years or 12 years, possibly the city of Plain or town of Plainfield could maybe have a contingency plan to assist in those areas of the villages where snow removal on the sidewalks, which are right next to the road, is a critical thing. So, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Linda Strymus, Exeter Road, Plainfield. I just have some questions on the forming a new charter revision commission and what the timeline would be for that, and also the need to have one right now when we've got all this other ordinances coming forward, our capital strategic committee. I just think it's like a really busy time, and I'm questioning why we need the charter revision now. So, do you have a timeline for that?
When we get to that, we'll discuss those items.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jeff Elvance, Moose of Connecticut, Mortimer Road. I just want to come before the Board of Selectmen just to highlight a couple things. On the agenda tonight, I noticed that there's discussion on a veteran's tax exemption, also the funding for the ambulance. Two items to go on the record. I 100% agree with any incentive or abatement for veterans, and also to be able to properly assist the ambulance, whatever number may be, to keep that service going in town. I also want to highlight, that kind of ties into all of this, several years ago, the chiefs met with Mr. Cunningham, and I kind of believe that the discussion just fell on deaf ears, and just wanted to get it out there. When we're talking about tax reimbursements and abatements, there's also stuff, Connecticut General Statute 12-81W. That was created back in 1999 as an incentive for volunteer EMS and firefighters for tax abatement. It's been there. We realize as the 4 fire departments in town that we are fire tax districts, and we've always operated very separately from the town. So back in 1999 when this came on the books, the fire chiefs felt, you know, we won't go to the town because when we know that there's tough budget seasons coming, we don't want to say that, you know, because we're giving the volunteer firemen a tax abatement, we can't buy a new school bus at the time, or whatever it may be. Times have changed since 1999 when they realized that volunteers weren't getting any stronger and started to do this thing. Nothing's changed in nearly 30 years. We're at a dire strait. Just listening sometimes to the selectmen meetings, I feel there's really, I know we have a few people now that are getting engaged, but I don't think people really understand what the emergency services in town do and the call volume that volunteers, and we're incentivizing our members to go, but just the 4 fire departments, let alone the ambulance, are going to 2,000 calls a year. That's 5 calls a day for volunteers. And we're not filling these positions with 20-year-old male and female firefighters. We have some 70-year-old firefighters going to calls who are retired. That's where we're at now. So if there's things, and when we're having discussions about abatements, for veterans, which again, that should have been done years ago, I would at least like you to entertain the abatements for volunteers, because again, one of the biggest things, and I'm sure the ambulance will talk about it, is getting people. One of their probably driving expenses right now is payroll, because the volunteers aren't there, and when you're staffing 1 to 2 ambulances a day to handle the other 2,000 EMS calls that are happening, you have to help out some way. What the fire departments did back in '99 is, obviously we have fire taxes. Our leadership in the fire districts decided to handle it in-house with abatement of fire taxes for our members. We don't charge for vehicles, so a lot of my members rent an apartment, so they don't get any incentive because we're not doing motor vehicle taxes. So if there's things out there that could be helpful, and like I said, this statute that does help firefighters is available for EMS too, so it kind of folds everything together that you guys are going to discuss later on, and I just appreciate maybe some time to look into that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we can move on to old business. There are a few items here. Item number 1 is discuss American Legion ambulance fiscal request upon the upcoming 26-27 budget. Chief Raymond Wood, you had sent out an email which I shared with the rest of the board. I guess I have a couple questions if you don't mind.
No problem with that.
Okay.
2, 3, 5, whatever you got.
Really just one. I know it was at the Board of Finance meeting, was it last week? And you gave a presentation to the Board of Finance. A question was asked about an audit and taking numbers from your reserve fund, and the reserve fund was asked a question about how much money you had. You said 600,000 at that time, and here you have in your email you have currently 110.
Correct. And actually, I did want to address that because I realized when I went back and started looking at everything. So when you look at the fund balance off the 990 form, what that includes is your assets, which would be your land, your vehicles, and your building itself. So when you add all of that together, that's when it makes that number look a lot larger. I do apologize for that because I had no intention to ever mislead any of you guys. I was an oversight on my part. When I realized that, I actually went back and started looking at everything. And because I thought the same question when that question was asked, I was like, well, this doesn't make sense to me either. Let me go look into that. And that's what I figured out afterwards, is that there was an oversight on my part, so I do apologize for that. Yes, and that is exactly where we're at right now. It's about $110,000 in the bank, which is about a month's expenses.
Okay. That was my main questions. Anybody else have any questions? I will say, I'll preface this by saying, really looking into this with CCM, they're our guidance. They help us out with other, as you heard, other ways to find out, like if someone's done a blight ordinance in the past, you can ask that question, which we have information on now. The other question I had with them was, would it be possible for them to put forth a RFP from other towns and how they would do their request for support and funding for an RFP with a fire department, not fire department, sorry, ambulance department. And so I went to the town attorney, I went to NECOG, I also went to the same group which gave us like about 3 or 4 different RFPs for having a ambulance service. So the question really kind of came down to how far away would you be coming from? if you put in the RFP, you'd like to have at least one, if not two, ambulances stationed in town, where would they go? That's some of the things that I came up with for questions for the, for CCM. They did give me, like I said, about 3 different ones. I personally think we can still put an RFP out there, put it together, and get something out to the different groups, so we can have something back before the startup of the beginning part of the fiscal budgeting season. So we already had earmarked 250. If we have to make modifications later on, we can do that. But I just wanted to know what your opinion is. Is that okay? Should we go out there and put an RFP out?
I can see us going out for an RFP. What I was curious of, Kevin, is I know we put in for 250. Do you have a number as far as what it should maybe be reduced to, or can we not really?
I don't think we should reduce it.
No?
No. And we come again, if we get this done first, we can make that adjustment before we go to vote.
Okay. And what about the suggestion of a contractual?
Well, that would be the RFP.
All right. Well, okay, but I mean, do you think we should definitely go into a contract, or do you think we should really do this by year? Initially, their ask was going to a 3-year.
Right. I think the issue really right now is I want all the data. I want the data so we can make the right decision. If it goes out to a contract via RFP, which most of them do, it's a 3-year, 5-year contract. So you want to be stable. You don't want to have somebody making modifications later on. You got it in a contract with the RFP.
I agree. I think, thank you, Chief. You gave us a lot of information in the reports that you gave us. We appreciate that. I'm good with what you're saying with the RFP. I would like to say, obviously, home rule with American Legion Ambulance. But obviously, we talked about their finances and getting something back from an auditor. I think, as of right now, I know you're looking for a quarter, but if we went out and gave them, let's just say 150, they would be able to operate for a year until we get an audit back from them. We know where we're standing, we know our stability from them, and we can still go out for RFPs because that's just knowledge to have. And if we decide to go for 3 years or 1 year, whatever it may be, but I think until we get something back from an audit and some more information that we've been asking for, I do think we should and we need to fund them for this year. But we don't have to lock into a 3-year contract. We could do a yearly contract until we get more information. But I'm not steadfast on that.
I would love to see an audit, because now you're telling the taxpayers that you have something that is audited and we have it to go forward.
Correct.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of, when I'm just looking at the timeline here, is I know that it was originally asked of, can you provide to us an audit? They, of course, eventually came back to us and said it had not been budgeted for. I mean, it's not to say that it can't be pursued, but the problem is the clock is ticking in our budget season. And we are running out of time before we know it's going to be time for the public hearing. We do have opportunities, of course, after the budget public hearing, to make adjustments down the road. But before we know it's going to be May, and the taxpayer is going to be voting on the budget. So my thing is I don't want to be making necessarily last-minute changes, and also, are we going to get an audit in time before that? I just don't think it's realistic that we are going to. But we have to make a decision at least for this year. And then I like the idea of once we get an audit, and again, getting information from an RFP, maybe we'll be able to make a better decision down the road.
If I'm reading all these numbers correctly, it looks like you're going to have a shortfall of about $2,000, but that's without doing anything to your ambulances or anything to your building, just basically your operating costs to stay afloat. Approximately $2,000. Obviously, we need to do maintenance to your ambulances. We need to do stuff to your building. I'm fine with that. But obviously, to go out without an audit and look at the taxpayers, Kevin, I think we need that audit. And I would recommend, maybe give them the 150, not the full vote of 250 at this time. Get them through this year, and then have them get back to an audit, and then maybe fully fund what you're asking or you're requesting.
And if I may, gentlemen,
Yeah.
again, we're not opposed to it. That's the thing, is that we're not opposed to it right now. It's just not budgeted for. It's not
Right.
So we definitely are not saying we don't want to do it. It's just right now it's just not feasible. As I said, we have a month's worth of expenses in cash, so it's not.
And we asked for it late in the game too, so
Yeah.
I understand.
Oh, no, completely. Again, we try not to be difficult, at least, so.
But I think it would certainly help when we're going to be possibly in this same boat next year.
Right.
You're going to come back to us and you're going to say, if let's say we ended up putting it down to 150, I mean, it's better than 80,000, so you did get an increase, but yet you come back to us and say, it's still not enough. We're still going to look to go back up to 200,000 or 250,000. At least if we're having that conversation next fiscal year, we can say, we're gonna have an audit, of course, before we revisit that conversation. As setting a goal, that's realistic, because of course, that's many months away. But trying to, have that now before we're about to make the decision for the proposal is tough, just to where we're at in budget season.
Just so I understand, for the selectmen, you were talking about 150,000.
That's just a number I threw out.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, let's use that for right now.
Yep.
150,000 with 110 in reserves, and we're going to give them that money without the audit.
I think to keep them afloat because they'll be in the negative, and we're just getting them through for this year, and we're not signing a contract, is what I'm saying.
Right. So roughly, how much would it cost for an audit? How long would it take? I mean, you only have, like, if I add up the two numbers here, 110 and 150, now you have 260 for the entire year. And then how much would the audit? 20, 25?
Yeah, something like that.
I don't think it would be that much. How much do the fire departments pay for an audit? I think that's about $5,000 a year. Yeah.
You do yours annually, right?
Yeah.
And they haven't done one yet at all. That's the problem. You gotta go back and get that history
I'm
and
sure.
start that up.
Yeah, no, we haven't been able to do one in a while because
But yeah, no, that's, in the second that we have the audit report, I would be more than happy to transmit it to you guys. So.
I think it would also be nice too, just kind of looking ahead, once we're in the next fiscal year after July 1, I think it would be nice if you guys could come back to us at maybe like a late summer, early fall Board of Selectmen meeting and give us like an update at that point in the fiscal year of how much of the red are you, has anything drastically improved or are things getting progressively worse? I think it would be nice to hear it early in the fiscal year instead of, waiting until February, March of next year for us to be getting an update. Plus the audit will of course help. So I think we should also try to plan for something like that of maybe, every so often, you come, giving us an update. Not every month. But.
I'm sure you give the board a monthly audit, right?
Our treasurer provides the board monthly
Reports.
reports. So.
And those could be forwarded out to us too, so we can have information throughout the year.
That's true. That's not a problem. So, but yeah, you tell me where and when, and I'll be happy to show up.
Okay.
So we've discussed it. I will try to get an RFP. I'll try to get an RFP just so we have it ready to go when we go to do it. We don't have it as an action item tonight, but we could also talk about that and add it as an action item for the modification to, next month's meeting. Explain what is shortly coming up anyway. So this is the first one in April. We can have it there for an action item to say, here's how much we're going to allocate towards the current.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me.
All right, let's do that. All right. Item number 2 and item number 3 in the old business was something we talked about before. I would like to entertain a motion to table that because I'd like to have Lisa here to explain the whole package. The whole package includes, on our regular meeting, all those items on item number 2, and then these 2. So I would ask the table so Lisa can come and explain each one to us so that it makes sense.
I'll make that motion to table number 2 and number 3, which is the procurement policy, and number 3 is the capital strategic planning committee.
I'll second that.
And we'll get to the other tabling later on. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item F. I'll read them all, but this is consider an act on tax refunds as requested by the tax collector. Totally, $12,918.05. CoreLogic centralized refunds $227. CoreLogic centralized refunds $1,558.53. Brian J. Williard and Marie J. Williard $263.57. There are 4 of them here for a send back. One for $1,062.36. One for $381.36. One for $2696.28, and one for $1849.03. There are 2 here for Eleanor B. Burbick, 3204 and 3135. Loretta LLC, 227. Another one, 4 more for Loretta LLC, 227. The third one is 454. Next is 1979.43. And then 1792.77. One more for that is a duplication, I believe. 1062.36. We also have Andrea S. Pellerin, $58, and Nissan Motor Acceptance Corp., $78.33.
I'll make a motion, as read, for tax refund totaling $12,918.05.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we come to item 2, which I again would ask you to consider for tabling. It says discuss the roles, responsibilities, capital governance framework, and includes the capital improvement policy, previously discussed acts, which we talked about for capital strategic, capital non-recurring fund policy, and the town and road fund policy.
I'll make a motion that we table item 2 as read.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 3 is discuss and act on a resolution creating a charter revision commission as part of Connecticut General Statute 7-188. So as was a question from the public comment section, the dates and the reasons. So I already have a calendar already made up, so it's all ready to go. That's no problem. We talked about charter revision possibilities. We've talked in the past about a town administrator or a town manager. Board of Police Commissioners wanting to add provisions that allow police departments to add funding for their own attorney, cleaning up and deleting some of the items in 7.1b, which is civil preparedness, which we don't really have at this point. Cleaning up the issue about the appointment of town treasurer or finance officer. I know that was asked before. Any request for additional funding. You see in your town charter that there is a request for funding for, if it's not in the budget, it's not in your budget item, but you have to come up right now within between $10,000 and $50,000, and it goes to a town meeting. Anything over 50,000 would require us to go to not only a town meeting, but then you go out to referendum. So there's been a request in the past to change those. If you know the way the town charter was initiated in 1984, those are the numbers from 1984. So that's one of the requests to discuss it. The other thing was, because anything over 250,000 being discussed on the board triggers a referendum without approval from the Board of Selectmen. Let's see. Travel reimbursement policy was something they wanted to talk about. Real estate sales, if you should referendum, regardless, anything for the real estate should be going to referendum.
My problem is with it, and obviously I've sat on a charter revision in the past, and Lynn has also. We need to pick out 4 or 5 things and not get bogged down with so many of them.
Right.
And just pick your high points and what you think that we need to work on and what our problems are. And just have the charter revision go forward with those 4 or 5 things, whatever you guys come up with, for that number. We can't be looking at 12
Oh,
things.
I agree.
And put it on the ballot.
That's usually what we do. We throw them out there, we prioritize and go from there. One of the other ones was also, it was mentioned that the possible change of term lengths from the Board of Finance and the Board of Education down to 4 years. Anybody that's served time, you know, you probably sat there for 6 years and watched people continually saying, I can't continue on going on.
Yeah.
So 4 years is what a lot of other towns do, but again, we just review it and take a look.
I think it's also good, just as a follow-up to Lynn's question. So the fact is too, Kevin, is that we can't just form a charter revision commission at any point during a given year. If we want it to be successful as far as narrowing it down, let's say to 4 or 5 items, and we wanted them to be voted on, we have to stick to a very specific timeline because of due dates by the Secretary of State, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So, but when that's kind of what really narrows down. It's like we couldn't start doing this in like August, you know, when we're past the budget season or something like that. So unfortunately, it's a very busy spring with everything else going on, but I knew that was part of it, is that we have to.
Yep. There's a Connecticut General Statute that lays it out for you, and that's what I follow to put those together, like we did in the past. The other thing is, if it gets to be too much work and it bogs us down, our town attorney has offered to make some changes. I'll give you the reason why the town attorney. If you were to make a change to the form of government, and instead you're going to call it the town manager or a town administrator, that takes a lot of work within the charter to make those changes. Because then you have to go to the next step, which is, well, then who's actually guiding you? Like in Killingly, you have a town manager and you have a council. So that would be a lot of work to put that in. So he'd offer to do that. I think we talked briefly about that.
Yep.
There's looking for, he'd be going probably about $10,000 to $15,000, I think would be the number that if he was to help out do that. But we wouldn't get there until we have confirmation from this particular board. So Lynn, I hope that answers your questions about some of the needs. I'm sure there's other people that have other needs as well. That's why we open up to the public and let the public have input on what's going on.
All right, so to create it, do we need to go with a resolution?
Yep. So there's two pieces to this. The first one is to create from the Board of Selectmen with an authorizing resolution that the town clerk, town of Plainfield hereby certifies that the following is true and correct of a resolution adopted by the Board of Selectmen as a duty held on March 30th, 2026, where a quorum is present and acting throughout, and that the resolution is not modified, rescinded, or revoked at the present in full force and effect. Be resolved that the Board of Selectmen shall, in accordance to Connecticut General Statute 7-188, shall amend its charter, and be it further resolved that Kevin Cunningham is first elected in the town of Plainfield is authorized to direct, to do and perform all acts and such things as deemed to be necessary and appropriate to carry out such amendment. The undersigned further certifies that Kevin Cunningham now holds that office as first selectman that he's held since November 19, 2019, and witness thereof, and then she could sign it. So that would be the resolution. And what is your pleasure?
I would make a motion to adopt the resolution as read.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 4, we had 3 people now, as it discussed an act on adding members to the Charter Revision Commission as part of Connecticut General Statutes 7-190. I did finally give you 3 names if you were so inclined.
How many people do you want on the board?
Usually, you have a minimum of 5. You have, you don't want to bring it up. It's like, one time I think we had started with 15 people, and I think that was way too much. Too many people involved in it, too many directions to go. Between 5 and 7, I think is very appropriate.
Okay. I would make a motion to add Robert Smith, Brittany Mora, and Lynn Desjardins to the Charter Revision Commission.
I'll second that.
Okay, so if I don't mind making a suggestion I can read it again, but this is a different resolution, so.
Okay.
Yep. So authorizing resolution of Plainfield Board of Selectmen certified that Diane Talbot, town clerk of the town of Plainfield, be hereby certified that the following is true and correct, and a copy of the resolution adopted by the Board of Selectmen duly called and held a meeting on March 30th, 2026, where the quorum was present and acting throughout, and that the resolution has not been modified, rescinded, or revoked, and its full presence and full force and effect. Be resolved that the Plainfield Board of Selectmen shall, in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 7-190, appoint members of the Charter Revision Commission. Be it further resolved that Kevin Cunningham as the first selectman of the town of Plainfield is authorized and directed to do and perform all acts and things which deemed to be necessary and appropriate to carry out such appointment. The undersigned further certifies that Kevin Cunningham now holds the office of first selectman and that has held that office since November 19, 2019. And those are the 3 members that you're looking to add on. Is Robert Smith, Lynn Desjardins, and Brittany Mora.
Correct.
So you're accepting the resolution as is?
I'll make a motion to accept the resolution as read with the 3 names that were put forward.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And again, to the public's comment about anti-blight, this is something that was started initially 2001 or 2002. It really didn't get any traction, but it needs more of a definition, and that's why I reached out again to CCM to see what other communities have this. And I would definitely put this up online and make copies available, because I really want the input from the public as to what they think is appropriate and not appropriate. I had one letter, because the gentleman came in my office and said, well, you have a blight. Do you have any blight ordinances? I said, no, but I'm drafting something. Maybe you can have some input. His input was not so much of changing what we have here, but more of, this is going to take a long time. Believe me, it's going to take a long time, because one of the things is, who are you going to have to go out there to the neighborhoods to look for blight, or act upon a request to go take a look at something. So that is what requires you to have some money, because that person is hired as a part-timer to come in and go take a look at everything. But I think it's going to take a little while to start this up. It's going to take a little while to get going. Do we have money in the budget right now for that? No. But it's still something we should look at and prepare for.
Yeah, and obviously we gotta have some great discussion as far as how much is that going to cost, because like I'm also thinking realistically, not just on the blight, but then, of course, we're gonna be talking about, sidewalks, obstruction of sidewalks, as far as enforcing that. And, looking at our current staffing levels, it's like I couldn't see, that all being on one of our current employees.
The zoning officer can't do all of
Right,
that.
right. So, yeah, we definitely have to have some additional discussion on that.
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope, and I have to agree with Trav. It has to be very narrow, and it has to be very defined.
Yep. Did you have a chance to take a look and read through that blight? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so any of your input we appreciate it because we want to make sure, this has already been gone through before, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, we looked and started drafting it, and the attorneys already looked at it as well. But I still, anytime you change it, you're going to have some more modifications, you have to have a review again.
And then probably doing some more comparison too of what other towns have. That certainly helps.
Oh yeah, I can give you copies of what they have.
Yeah.
So I will try to make that as a packet available for the public so they can see what this is. We don't have to take any action on this one tonight, so just first reading, you guys already read it. Item number 6 talks about the amendment of an ordinance concerning building permits. And we talk about making sure that we do the right thing. This is 134. I gave you in the packet there. You see, the attorneys actually, you'll know which one it is because it will say, on the top, it will say, Section 1 is short title. So that's his interpretation. So on the 3rd page, it talks about the fee exemptions. The following shall be exempt. And he gives a list of which we can, either accept or make modifications to now. But it's something to look over. And probably maybe next meeting we come back and talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it doesn't say action item on that.
Right.
So basically, your only change, as Kevin, is section number 9, the fee exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
And if I am reading it right, obviously the town of Plainfield, fire departments organized and operated within the town of Plainfield and used directly for fire protection, and buildings and structures owned or leased by an ambulance company and used directly for ambulance purposes.
Mm-hmm.
These are the only exemptions that
For right now. If you want to add more or talk about more, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, when I look at that, my big thing is, because we just had this recent discussion with Plainfield Fire District, and I know that initially you had not voted in favor of that, I just want to make sure that this scenario can come again, certainly down the road. Obviously not with Plainfield, because once they're in their spot, they're in their spot. But if any of our other fire districts ever, are in that situation where they're expanding, moving, whatever, and they want an opportunity to come to the Board of Selectmen for us to consider waiving, I certainly want that to still be an option,
Right.
down the road and not restricted.
Because the current one really doesn't say you have the right to waive anything. But this one will get it right. I think this will correct that issue. My problem with the ordinances, we'll go through a couple of readings, we'll put it up to a public town meeting just to talk about it publicly, and then eventually you get to vote on it. So it takes a little while. Which brings us to item 7 to discuss the ordinance 120, ordinance concerning the obstruction of sidewalks and highway. Again, this came forward because of the snowstorms we've had. The multitude and the volume have made it almost impossible during this past year to keep up with it. I think we should be talking with, and I did reach out to, with an email I thought I sent out to the superintendent of schools, to Mario, for a follow-up discussion with our town highway staff as well, because we have to work cooperatively to say, number one, what are the areas that the town is responsible for, such as if you're talking about the sidewalks that are in front of the schools, my opinion, it should be the schools. If it's a town-owned building, like the ECC or wherever we have as a town hall, library, wherever the sidewalks are in front of those, again, we should be talking about who's responsible, take ownership. And the rest of it should be, talking about anything that we missed.
Abandoned properties.
Right. One of the things I think we spoke about last time was that angel program, where you're going to get some volunteers to be able to come out. And by the way, I got that from CCM. There was another town that has that. Actually, there's 3 towns that have that. To be able to come up with a matching and a pairing of individuals who have signed up for, needing support, and then this group of people, they call them the angel group, but they go out there and they'll match them up with people to help and support clearing off their sidewalk. But again, this is just the first rough look at it. I definitely want your input on it.
At some point at one of our upcoming meetings, I know you said you're going to reach out, obviously, superintendent and our highway department, we'll all hopefully be present in the upcoming meeting, but I would want to recognize the police chief to come before us at some point because the way it is written, with it being the police department's responsibility for enforcement, I don't know that that's very realistic. We have to obviously set the best example as the town, and the fact is there's areas that have just been unattended to, that we haven't gotten to, and that can be due to equipment being down, lack of manpower, etc. But with our current numbers of the police department in the aftermath of a storm and some of the things that they dealt with, during the storm, I don't know if they would have the manpower to enforce it either. So I would want definitely his input to us at a meeting and to the public to say, with your current, do you think this is realistic, or would we need to actually look to hire, kind of like with a blight enforcement, somebody who, and maybe it would be the same person, I don't know, but I definitely would want his input on that.
Yeah, definitely want to have him in there, so we'll get everybody's viewpoint on it, because you're right. How do you actually go ahead and enforce? What if you have an abandoned building?
Right, look at the sidewalks downtown along Route 14, on the other side, in front of Interroyal and stuff. We do a poor job as a town clearing them.
Yep. Whether it's manpower, whether it's equipment, and so we can start planning that out as well. I don't see her here. Number 8 was again, I did reach out with an email. She said she would be here, but she is not, so there's really no action to take on this. We're going to listen to a tax, I shouldn't say, yeah, it says no action. We're going to listen to a resident who wanted to talk about some exemptions, and I think there is something in the state legislature this time, so we're waiting for that to come to fruition to find out if we may or may not even have to do anything with this.
Chief, I certainly appreciate, your thoughts earlier in regards to veteran tax exemption. It's true, we need to try to do more, and hopefully there'll be more support from the state, in the future, but I appreciate your input on that.
And obviously we know it's not just the calls. Every Wednesday night they're drilling for multiple hours. Everybody has to get different levels of certification, which takes Saturdays and Sundays for 6 months that you guys need. So we understand it's a heavy lift.
The last 2 things that I added were item number 9 was discuss and act on requests for payout for donations to different groups for the donation policy. So I think I did it a little backwards. In your packet you have the request for disbursement, the general ledger showing what the disbursements were, why it was done and when it was done for the 5K Trailblazer, and then you have eventually the actual policy.
Kevin, the policy is supposed to be available on the town website, right? If anybody from the public wants to, okay. If we can just double check that, because sometimes I know I have to give people direction on how to find things on the town website, but sometimes they brought up some very valid points of it's not there, and I've gone and gotten an error of 404 or whatever the heck it is, so I do want to make sure that they can reference that.
If they want to give me an email or a call, that's fine. I can probably walk them through where things are. We do have Autumn, who's in the town clerk's office, can walk through as well. So the request for disbursement of donation of fund.
Is that just the one for the Veterans Coffee House for the 464?
I think you've got American Legion Post 91. Let's get all 3 in there.
I have the Run and I have the Coffee House. So.
And they're both the same 464?
No, the Coffee House is 464 and then the Run is 500, correct?
Oh, that was the cost. Without all the proper data, I would ask to table.
I'll make a motion that we table the payout of donations to groups per the donation policy.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will make sure that she comes to the next meeting, that way she'll have all the paperwork for us. Alrighty. That would be it. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just real quick, Kevin. I saw on next month's calendar, there was like a pension on a Tuesday when the Board of Selectmen was meeting on Monday. If you could just look at
Oh, I'll look it up. Shouldn't be, so I'll have to
I
fix
think it's
it.
just posted wrong, just to make sure.
The first week, usually the first week is our pension.
Yep. And I think that was posted on a Tuesday when it should be underneath us on Monday.
I will take care of that.
Thank you.
Okay, this time,
Hey, Kevin,
Motion.
isn't there one more item on your agenda, number 10 now?
that was number 10, I think.
No, that's open space committee.
Number 9 was
Oh,
discuss.
yeah, you did have,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, thank you.
Yeah.
Discuss and act on adding a new member to the Open Space Committee. We had one person who wants to join in, Janae Poppy. You know, right now we have 3 members, so this would help out.
Yeah, go ahead. So, I have got a couple of people, Kevin, who have asked, like, does it really make sense to have, 2 commissions, 2 committees that really do have a number of things when it comes to their focus, their scope, that kind of overlap? I know that, having known people in conservation, we had like a group that like kind of just abruptly left. And I don't know all the reasons as far as it was just due to lack of interest, lack of productivity, constant cancellation of meetings. But the point is that we got a conservation commission, which we got to support. And then back in 2022, the open space was formed. And I know in the beginning, I remember, viewing some of those meetings, there was some traction, there was some discussion in the beginning, but then in recent times, I spoke to one person, they said the reason why they've left in recent times is because they just don't think that there's really a lot going on with those meetings, so they lost interest, which is completely up to them. But my ultimate question is, this was started in 2022 and was really meant to be a temporary committee. How long do you think this committee would be utilized for?
I'm going to say probably, 2 more years. And the reason why we're going after grants. So they're not just a quick turnaround. Those grants sometimes take a little while. I know that's what we're waiting for right now. I can have Shannon write something up for you to see where we stand. I know that the problem I would see is that they have different functionality.
All right,
One is
that
looking-
was my question,
Yeah.
just to wrap it up into the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, because there's different functions.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we need to take an action on that.
Oh, sorry, yes, we do. Item number 10.
You got it right.
Item number 10, so you have that one person who would like to join to the
Right.
open space?
I'll make a motion that Dana Pape for the Open Space Committee in the town.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.